Okay, that's beautiful. Hold it there. The exposure is correct, but the color looks like shit.
Action!
Hi! You would have learned by now how to use your flash on top of your camera to brighten up dark locations. But your next problem is, the flash is so overwhelming in color, it kills the beautiful ambient mood and color of that location. Today's episode, we're going to learn how to brighten up a location without killing the ambient color. And to learn the tricks of how not to kill the ambient light, I've brought you to my academy's computer lab. What I like about this place is pretty dark. You can only shoot here if you use flash, but I particularly like the tungsten amber light feel to this place. You do this wrongly, all this yellow light will be gone. Now, to model for today's episode, the lovely Filipina.
Hi everyone!
There are two parts to this trick. The first part is to do the settings in your camera. As you can see, the setting in this camera now is ISO 400 and f2.8 and a shutter speed of 400. Well, typically photographers would use a lower ISO because they say that, hey, I'm going to be firing my flash, and this is where the mistake will be. Make sure that number one, your ISO is not too low. Typically bring it up to 800 or 1600 because the location is dark. Number two, you have to make sure that you do not lock down on your white balance. As you can see, some of you may be so well versed with white balance, you're using Kelvin. The problem with this is it's locked to this number. Instead of doing this, go back to the auto white balance. Let the camera do its job. That way it can sway the color automatically for you, hence not locking down the color. Number three, look at the exposure meter. It's too negative. You are going to be using TTL on your camera. With this, the TTL is going to fire more flash because looking at the exposure meter, the TTL says that, hey, you are dark. Let's give you more flash. More flash means more flash color, and that's how you kill ambient and end up looking very flash-like. Lower your shutter speed to right about 0. That's the trick for today. And that brings us to the second part, which is to set up your flash. As you can see, the TTL is set up correctly, but do not point the flash directly at your subject. That's the worst thing to do. Your subject looks dark in a dark location, not because that she is born dark. It's because the location is dark. So the trick is to point your flash and bounce it away. Well, typically people would bounce up. That's the worst thing to do too. You're going to have a lot of shadow under the eyes. Do not bounce it to the nearest wall too. There's a wall over here. This will create a very bright light on her right hand side. Instead, bounce your flash to somewhere that has no wall. This is the trick. That way your flash will not be overpowering and not casting too much of flashlight. So that's the right way to do. Second step, go to your flash, bring down the compensation with the negative button. Most modern flash would have this feature. Bring it down to even -1 on the EV, or you may try 2/3. That should do the trick. The flash should be just powerful enough to light up the subject, but not overwhelmed with the color. With all this in place now, as you can see, the exposure meter is just right about 0. Take your focus point to your subject. Focus at her nearest eyes to the camera. Come back to composition, and boom. Beautiful shot. That's how you fire a flash to light up the room without killing the ambient. Well, let me explain what just happened here. Your flash is on TTL, which is automatic, which means that if your camera is darker in exposure, it will fire more flash. Hence, you get more flash color. But if you make your camera less dark on the exposure, the flash will fire less flash and you get more ambient color. Well, let me explain to you in another way. Imagine you have a room like this, and then you have a table lamp. And imagine that the table lamp sings, that goes ooh. And the stand lamp sings as well, but to another tone that goes ee. So now, if you put in a flash which is not strong, it will go ee. So when they all go on together, they will not drown out each other. But if your flash is strong, it will go ah, and that will drown out all the ambient light in the room, hence making a picture look like this. And that's how you use your flash without killing the ambient lighting and mood. So our usual 3 requests.
Visit our website,
which is www.beyondphotography.com.my. Please subscribe to our e-learning there. We have launched a couple of new e-learning titles. We need your support. We need the financial means to continue to be able to do free YouTube videos like this.
write to us,
Which is info@beyondphotography.com.my, because we want to hear what trouble and problems that you have with your camera so we can do more tutorials like this.
and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Right here.